I remember the day I gave birth like it was yesterday, the sterile hospital room, the smell of disinfectant, the soft whimpers of newborn babies in nearby cribs, and the unbearable mixture of exhaustion and excitement. My heart was full of hope, anticipation, and joy, until the doctor's words cut through everything like a knife. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harper," he said gently, adjusting his glasses and holding my hand. "Your son, Ethan, he has profound hearing loss." I stared at him, my mind refusing to process the words. Deaf. My baby. Ethan. My firstborn. The tiny life I had carried for 9 months, the one I had imagined whispering his first words to me, laughing at my silly faces, and holding my finger in the park, deaf. I felt a trembling in my chest, a weight that made it hard to breathe. Tears burned my eyes as I tried to swallow my fear, my pain, my grief. And then I looked at my husband, Jason, expecting some comfort, some shared sadness, some whispered reassurance. But his face was blank, his eyes cold, and I saw something there I never wanted to see: judgment, impatience, and something far worse, disappointment. He didn't reach for my hand. He didn't touch the tiny body of our son lying in my arms. Instead, he muttered something under his breath and left the room. He walked out like I hadn't just given birth, like the life that depended on both of us didn't matter. I was alone. Completely alone, with Ethan and a pain that no one could understand unless they had lived it. The nurses came in quietly, offering blankets, soft words, and gentle guidance. I held Ethan close, feeling his warmth, his fragile little fingers curling around mine, and I realized something. He was my son, deaf or not, and I would protect him. I would fight for him. I wouldn't let anyone take away my love or my dignity. But the betrayal from Jason cut deeper than the diagnosis. A partner, the person who promised to be there through sickness, health, joy, and sorrow, had abandoned me in the very hour I needed him most. I felt disbelief, heartbreak, and a burning anger I didn't know how to channel yet. In the days that followed, Jason's absence became a pattern. He didn't attend early interventions, didn't answer calls, didn't visit the hospital beyond short, awkward check-ins that made me feel like an intruder in my own life. Friends whispered gently, family tried to intervene, but I realized quickly that no one could change him, only I could protect my child, only I could find a way forward. I started researching. I spent hours online, reading stories of children with hearing loss, watching videos, joining forums, connecting with other parents. I devoured every piece of information, every strategy, every success story. I would become Ethan's advocate, his voice, his world, because Jason had abandoned that responsibility. The first therapy session was overwhelming. I remember walking into the small room, seeing the other parents, their children making sounds, signing, playing with colorful toys, and I felt the sting of comparison and the fear of inadequacy. Could I really do this? Could I raise a deaf child alone when I barely knew how to navigate this new reality? But then I looked at Ethan, and he smiled. That tiny, perfect smile, full of trust and love, told me everything I needed to know. I could. I would. I had no choice but to rise, to fight, and to transform my heartbreak into strength. Weeks turned into months, and I learned quickly how to juggle hospital visits, therapies, work, and the constant challenges of single parenting. Jason occasionally appeared in texts, asking perfunctory questions, never offering help, never acknowledging the pain he had caused. Each time, I felt the old anger and betrayal flare, but I also felt something new, determination. I realized that I didn't need him. Not for validation, not for support, not for love. I was enough. Ethan was enough. And together, we would thrive. I enrolled in classes for parents of deaf children, learned sign language, and connected with speech therapists who guided me, encouraged me, and reminded me that I wasn't alone. Slowly, I built a network, a community, a support system that Jason had refused to provide. And with every small milestone, Ethan responding to a sign, babbling in his own way, learning to communicate, I felt vindication. Life had tested me, betrayed me, and tried to break me, but every tiny victory was proof that resilience could turn heartbreak into hope. One evening, as I sat by Ethan's crib, practicing the signs he was learning, I whispered softly, "You and I, baby, we can do this. No one can stop us." And in that moment, I made a vow to myself: I would never let betrayal define my life. I would turn pain into purpose, despair into action, and abandonment into wisdom. Jason may have left us, but he had inadvertently given me something far greater, the realization that I was stronger than I had ever known, and my son deserved a mother who would fight for him without hesitation. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I want every woman who has ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or overwhelmed to know this: you are not powerless. Our strength, your determination, and your love can turn life's cruelest moments into triumphs that no one can take away. Ethan may have been born deaf, and Jason may have walked away, but together, we were beginning a journey that would redefine what it means to rise after betrayal. The first months at home were a blur of sleepless nights, therapy appointments, and the constant struggle to learn how to communicate with Ethan. Every sound he couldn't hear, every word he didn't respond to, reminded me of the cruel twist life had thrown at us. Yet, each little breakthrough, a sign recognized, a babble mimicked, a smile in response, filled me with a joy that was deeper than any happiness I had known before. I was learning to live in a new rhythm, one where patience, consistency, and love became my tools, my weapons, and my sanctuary. Jason didn't return. He sent a few messages early on, vague apologies masked as obligations, but it was clear he wasn't ready to step into the life of a father who had responsibilities he had never prepared for. Each time his name appeared on my phone, a wave of hurt surged through me. I had loved him once, trusted him deeply, and envisioned a family we would navigate together. Now, I realized that trust was gone, replaced by the hard lessons of betrayal and abandonment. I learned, slowly but surely, that parenting a deaf child alone required not just skill, but courage. Financial stress became another constant companion. With Jason absent, the bills for therapy, specialized equipment, and medical follow-ups fell squarely on my shoulders. I had to find ways to manage everything, balancing my part-time job and freelance work with the relentless demands of care. There were days I wanted to scream, to collapse, to let the weight of exhaustion and heartbreak consume me, but I couldn't. Ethan depended on me. Every small victory he achieved was a reminder that I had to be stronger than the circumstances, braver than the fear, and more determined than despair. Family support was a mixed blessing. My parents were kind and tried to help, but they were cautious, afraid to upset Jason or intervene too directly. Friends offered advice and sympathy, but none could walk in my shoes. And yet, that isolation forced me to develop resilience I never imagined I possessed. I learned to advocate for Ethan in doctors' offices, to negotiate with therapists, and to trust my instincts as a mother above all external judgment. Slowly, my confidence grew, along with a quiet sense of empowerment that came from realizing I could do this alone. The turning point came when I discovered a local support group for parents of deaf children. Meeting other mothers and fathers, sharing stories of struggle, triumph, and heartbreak, I finally understood that I wasn't alone. They shared practical strategies, emotional coping mechanisms, and stories of children who had learned to thrive despite challenges. I soaked in every word, every tip, every encouragement, and began implementing them with Ethan. From sign language games to sensory exercises, I created a world for him that was rich, nurturing, and full of opportunity. Through the months, I began documenting Ethan's progress, capturing his milestones, recording his first signs and gestures, and creating a scrapbook of triumphs. It wasn't long before I realized that this journey could be more than survival, it could be advocacy. I started sharing our story online, connecting with other parents and families, and inspiring those who felt overwhelmed and hopeless. The love I poured into Ethan became a beacon, not just for him, but for others navigating similar challenges. Jason attempted to re-enter our lives after about a year. He reached out, claiming he wanted to be part of Ethan's life, as if his absence had been a minor inconvenience rather than a betrayal. I listened carefully, noting the empty promises and excuses, and for the first time, I saw him clearly, a man who had abandoned his family when they needed him most, expecting forgiveness and gratitude in return. I knew then that reconciliation wasn't possible without accountability, and accountability was something he had yet to understand. I chose to protect Ethan above all else. I explained, calmly but firmly, that his presence alone wasn't enough. A father's role wasn't just biological, it required commitment, love, and consistency. Jason faltered, frustrated, and for a brief moment, I saw the man who had once seemed so confident reduced to uncertainty. I realized that the power of our bond, Ethan and mine, was stronger than any guilt or intimidation he could muster. My child's well-being, my love, and my determination created a shield that no betrayal could penetrate. By the end of that year, Ethan was thriving. His vocabulary and signs grew daily, his confidence blossomed, and his personality shone through in ways that made my heart swell. I had turned what seemed like a tragedy into a journey of growth, learning, and triumph. I had learned that betrayal, though painful, can be a catalyst for strength, and abandonment can be the seed of independence. I had transformed heartbreak into purpose, despair into action, and loss into empowerment. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I want every parent, every woman, every person who has felt abandoned or betrayed to know this. Your courage, your love, and your perseverance can transform the most painful experiences into stories of hope, triumph, and resilience. Ethan and I had endured a storm that seemed impossible to survive, but together, we were stronger than any betrayal, braver than any fear, and ready for the life we deserved. By the time Ethan turned 3, I had completely transformed our lives. The hospital days, the nights filled with fear, and Jason's abandonment felt like distant echoes, replaced by the warmth of our small victories and the growing confidence that came from surviving against all odds. I had learned to navigate life with one hand on my child and the other firmly grasping my own strength. Every sign Ethan mastered, every laugh he shared, every tiny success was a reminder that betrayal could be turned into triumph. I returned to work part-time, managing projects that allowed me to earn while still being present for Ethan. I built routines that balanced therapy, school readiness, and social interaction, ensuring that he had opportunities no one would have imagined for a child born deaf in our suburban neighborhood. I met other parents, educators, and therapists who became part of our extended family, offering guidance and camaraderie. I felt a pride I had never known, pride in my son, pride in my resilience, and pride in the life I was creating without Jason's support. Then came the unexpected twist. One evening, I received a message from Jason's sister, someone I had barely spoken to in years. She hinted that Jason was struggling in his new relationship, that he was now facing the consequences of abandoning responsibility. I felt a flicker of curiosity, tempered by caution. I had no desire for revenge, only a desire to protect myself and Ethan. But when I saw Jason at a community event months later, attempting to appear as a doting father while clearly out of depth, I realized that life had a way of balancing itself. His excuses, once charming, now fell flat in the light of truth and responsibility. I continued documenting Ethan's progress, this time more intentionally. I created videos of his development, shared insights on deaf parenting, and began speaking at local parenting workshops. I found joy in teaching others, in turning our story of heartbreak into a roadmap for strength and empowerment. Each time a parent approached me, grateful for advice or encouragement, I felt the power of my resilience grow. Jason had walked away thinking I would falter, but I had flourished, building a community and a legacy of love, determination, and wisdom. Our home became a sanctuary, filled with laughter, learning, and the quiet triumphs of daily life. Ethan's curiosity about the world grew daily. He explored the backyard with his small hands, pointing at the birds, feeling the leaves, and learning signs for every new discovery. I watched him, heart full, knowing that the hardships we had faced were now the foundation for his courage and confidence. Jason's absence no longer felt like a wound but like a shield, forcing me to rise to a level of strength I had never imagined. The ultimate moment of poetic justice came unexpectedly. Jason had attempted to reinsert himself into Ethan's life once again, claiming he wanted to make amends. I met him at the park, calmly, observing him as he tried to catch Ethan's attention. Ethan ignored him, more interested in his sign language interactions with me. I realized in that moment that the bond between parent and child isn't simply inherited, it is earned through love, consistency, and presence. Jason's absence had irrevocably weakened his position, and no amount of words or superficial gestures could replace the years he had missed. I felt no anger, only a quiet satisfaction. Life had dealt Jason a series of consequences for his abandonment, a missed childhood, lost trust, and a reality he could not control. And for me, life had delivered something far more powerful: independence, wisdom, and the unbreakable bond with a child who thrived because of, not in spite of, the obstacles we had faced. Each smile from Ethan, each sign he mastered, each milestone achieved was a testament to resilience and love. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I want every woman, every parent, and every person who has ever faced abandonment to understand this: betrayal is a powerful teacher. It can destroy if you let it, but it can also forge strength, wisdom, and opportunity if you choose to rise. Ethan and I had faced despair, heartbreak, and rejection, but we had emerged victorious, proving that love, courage, and patience always outlast betrayal. By the time Ethan turned 5, our lives had transformed completely. The hospital memories, Jason's abandonment, and the endless nights of fear now seemed like distant echoes, replaced by the triumphs we had earned through resilience, patience, and unwavering love. Ethan's world was rich with learning, communication, and laughter. His first words in sign language were like fireworks in my heart, proof that love, dedication, and belief could move mountains even when life tried to knock us down. Jason tried again, quietly, attempting to appear in our lives under the guise of concern. He sent messages, tried to visit, and even offered small gifts, as though material things could erase years of neglect. I listened carefully, aware of his intentions but no longer swayed by his charm or guilt. Ethan had grown to know what consistency, presence, and love looked like, and his response reflected the bond we had built. He didn't need Jason, and I didn't either. The absence that once felt like betrayal had become the catalyst for our independence and empowerment. I had begun sharing our story more widely, creating videos and blog posts about raising a deaf child, advocating for children like Ethan, and supporting other parents navigating similar challenges. The response was overwhelming: messages of gratitude, encouragement, and admiration poured in. People were inspired by our journey, by the transformation of pain into purpose, by the proof that abandonment does not define destiny. My voice, once quiet and uncertain, now carried authority, empathy, and the power of lived experience. The ultimate poetic justice came unexpectedly. Jason had sought attention at a community event, trying to portray himself as a caring father. But the truth was visible to everyone: he had abandoned his child, missed crucial milestones, and left me to carry the weight of responsibility alone. Witnesses saw him struggle to interact with Ethan, who responded with polite indifference, reflecting the reality of years Jason had ignored. There was no drama, no confrontation. The world quietly acknowledged the truth. His absence, his choices, and his betrayal had naturally exposed him. Ethan and I had become a team, unbreakable and unshakable. Our journey had taught me lessons I would never forget: that strength often emerges from heartbreak, that love can thrive despite absence, and that perseverance turns despair into triumph. I realized that betrayal, though painful, can serve as a guide, revealing your capacity to endure, to adapt, and to succeed against all odds. Each milestone Ethan reached, each sign he mastered, and each smile he shared was a testament to resilience, courage, and unconditional love. I looked at Jason one last time, not with anger, but with quiet certainty. Life had spoken louder than any words I could have uttered. The consequences of his actions had already unfolded. He could not take back lost years, cannot buy trust, and cannot erase the strength Ethan and I had cultivated. And I, too, had found freedom, freedom from dependence, freedom from fear, and freedom to define my life and my child's future on my own terms. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I want every parent, every woman, and every person who has ever faced betrayal or abandonment to understand this: your courage, patience, and unwavering love are more powerful than anyone's absence. Ethan and I turned heartbreak into hope, betrayal into wisdom, and despair into triumph. Life had tested us, but we had emerged victorious, stronger, and more resilient than ever. And in the quiet moments, when Ethan curled up beside me, asleep and peaceful, I whispered to him and to anyone listening, life may throw unimaginable challenges your way, loved ones may abandon you, and pain may feel endless, but if you stand firm, nurture love, and refuse to surrender, you can transform any heartbreak into a legacy of strength, hope, and enduring triumph.